Chapter 12. Marci and Bill were shown to the guest quarters on the west side of the pyramid and given a surprise gift from Imari, the use of his favorite servant for their own while visiting, a young linguist named Imari. With Imari interpreting through sign language and what English he'd already impressively gleaned from the couple in just a short amount of time, Imari encouraged them to use Imari in whatever way they chose. Translator, massage therapist, skilled assassin, lover. Imari blushed shyly while his master sang his praises. As he left them, Imari explained quietly to Imari he was to stick close to the duo, ingratiating himself to them in an effort to find out their dark secrets, reporting directly back only to his master. Marci sullenly unloaded her toiletries, noting the room was surprisingly cool without air conditioning, though the poor man waving the large fan over his guest was sweating profusely. Imari watched in complete fascination as she set out bottles of antacid, sunscreen, and a selection of mysterious beauty products. The next morning, as Imari sat in front of his master, picking apricot scrub from his eyebrows, he reported no interesting activity before Imari directed him to take Marci shopping in the square and continue his investigation. "Marci," Imari called out, "would you like shop with Imari?" "Y'all go ahead," Bill waved, relieved as he'd received a secretive request from one of the old priests to meet him on the east side of the temple gardens at dawn and was already several hours late. Despite the language barrier, Imari and Marci carried on a spirited conversation while perusing goods in the market, and as she grew more comfortable, Marci began telling Imari of the future. He perked up. "Well, where we're from in the future, you can't find leather sandals like these, you know?" She glanced over at her companion, now hanging on every word. Thus encouraged, she nattered on, making repeated references to the future throughout the day. As Imari breathlessly related these terrifying predictions of a nightmarish future to Imari hours later, his eyes narrowed suspiciously. So this Marci, at least, was an oracle? The very thought perplexed him. Though what an honor to the gods, he trembled with the thought. He knew he must ensure the oracle was sacrificed on the full moon and gathered the priests to tell them of his findings. It was decided they would take notes and write a codicil based on the prophecies of this pale white stranger, and then they would sacrifice them and gladly eat their hearts while the gods rejoiced. While Marci shopped and prognosticated, Bill spent the first part of his day staring into wilted, empty plantain fields, nodding empathetically with Wanadi, the eldest. Though he didn't understand a word the native was saying to him, Bill nodded in acquiescence, even sketching a series of bizarre doodles in the sand with a plantain leaf frond, leaving Wanadi puzzled and confused by his advice. The warriors who'd originally captured Marci and Bill jogged by on their way to patrol, inviting Bill to come along, and, having grown bored of staring into the fields, Bill gratefully jogged away from Wanadi the eldest with a casual wave goodbye. Flip-flops flayed and bursting with excitement, Bill returned to the room later that evening, eager to share his stories of the Mayan patrol with Marci, but she was distracted, modeling her day's purchases. She'd been informed by Imari that the priest wanted to interview her the following morning, promising they would be as fascinated as he by her tales of life in the future. Meanwhile, Wanadi still stood among the plantains, trying to make some sense of the line drawings Bill scored into the moist earth earlier. As the stars came out, and Wanadi consumed his special tea and looked up to the sky, he finally saw it. The very shapes Bill had drawn were also above. The constellations. Yes, why had he not seen it before? The solution to the problem would come from the sky, and a meteorite had landed beyond the plantain groves a fortnight before. A portent. Tomorrow he would take one of the learned engineers of the sinking city and find where this meteorite punctured the earth. The answer would lie there. He was sure of it. his confidence in Bill's wisdom restored. At dawn, Bill set off early to patrol with his new warrior friends, and Marci with Imari to her private audience with the priests. She didn't know what type of stories the priest wanted to hear, but she was willing to talk. And talk she did. Once the priests gathered before her, their hands on their quills, all eyes on her, she began to speak. Her rant lasted 16 straight hours while the sweating priests and their protégés wrote as quickly as their handmade nibs would allow, going through 18 pots of ink, 34 pens, and 20 gallons of mezcal tea. Imari, though a gifted translator, was not as wholly comfortable with this modern English as he'd let on. He found the language peppered with flowery wordsmithing, completely lost on his pragmatic Mayan brain. Therefore, what Marci said and what was translated were not exactly the same. What follows are transcripts from the Dresden Codex, excerpts from one of the only surviving Mayan writings, stolen by the Spaniards, then taken to Europe as a prize in the 1600s. Portions of these writings are considered Mayan prophecies of the future. What Marci actually said. So while we're at the Super Bowl parade, I'm literally burning alive because of the sun. I told Bill we should have brought sunscreen, and he's like, it's January. I don't care what ding-dang month it was. The sun's still burning my skin. Everyone talks about global warming, but I'm telling you, it is real. And Bill could give a shit. Does he recycle? No. And then when we go to Applebee's, the AC was on high, so I was freezing. It was just a miserable, miserable day. Imari's translation. The sun will eat the earth. The people of earth will burn, and when the burning is over, they will freeze. What Marci actually said. So we head to Macy's, the department store, but they're already closed, and I freak out because the office Christmas party was the next evening, and I didn't have anything to wear. And here's Bill just telling me about the party that day, and he's like, it's not the end of the world, wearing your dress from last year. And I'm like, it is the end of the world, Bill. It most definitely is the end of the world. I can't even fit in that dress. I've gained so much weight. Imari's translation. The world will end. At this point, the priest questioned Marci on the approximate date of the end of the world. What Marci actually said. Oh, who's to say? Y'all were the ones who set the wrong date, right? What was that? I don't know, maybe it was 2012, but December, right? Oh, wait. What was that movie? The one with the guy holding the radio? Oh, I just saw it. The 21st, December 21st, 2012. I never really bought into all that, but the movie, it was all right. Imari's translation. The end of the world is December 21st, 2012. At the end of Marci's interview, exhausted by all they'd heard of the Earth's horrific future, the priest formally determined Marci a valid oracle and auspicious sacrifice, congratulating Ilari Chi on his cunning. When Imari mentioned a celebration 2 days hence, Marci happily accepted, not realizing it was an invitation to her own demise.